Right, so I've been really looking forward to speaking to you today. It seems like it's been so long in the build up to ParDreaming, and it's really great for the Pardot community actually that this is the first Pardot specific conference to happen, which is a big step forward for Pardot. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lucy Mazalon, and I'm the head editor, and I look after the operations as well at salesforceben.com. I'm founder of a blog called The Drip, which is dedicated to marketing automation. And I started that blog a number of years ago based on my experiences as a marketing automation consultant. Up until the start of this year, I was a Pardot and Salesforce consultant. So yeah, it was like my trials and tribulations of that. All documented on the blog. I was also named a Salesforce Marketing Champion in 2020, and I'm the co-leader of the London B2B Marketers Group, formerly the London Pardot User Group. So this is what we're going to go through today. Some of these items may seem a little bizarre, but it'll all become clearer soon. So first of all, I'm going to cover what deliverability is and why it's become such a challenge. Then I'm going to introduce a very special imaginary place called the Inbox Nightclub. Then we're going to cover, are you on the guest list? The 5 factors that will determine whether you can enter the nightclub. And I want to leave you with a practical takeaway. So the final section, we'll talk about the importance of distinguishing between deliverability and mailability, and how that will help you with email data management and predicting campaign performance. So yeah, so you can leave here with some practical actions to take in Pardot. So let's start at the very beginning by defining what deliverability is. So deliverability, I thought this definition of deliverability was great. So I thought rather than reinvent the wheel, I'm going to borrow this definition that Validity included in one of their reports. Validity are a Salesforce ISV partner. So in short, deliverability, I'm really tripping up over my words. Deliverability is the ability to get your email delivered to the inbox of your target recipient. Of course, falling down at the last hurdle means that you would have pumped tons of resources into an email that isn't going to get seen. So it's an email that's not going to serve its purpose. Email deliverability is a universal challenge for marketers or one. As email will continue to be core to marketing automation, monitoring, fixing, and improving deliverability should become a priority for marketing teams. In one large global survey, marketers ranked deliverability as the 3rd greatest challenge they face. That may not sound major, but when you think about how long email's been around and like the analytics we have in other areas of marketing automation, and also the sheer number of other challenges that marketers face and new ones coming up all the time, it's quite significant that deliverability is still the 3rd greatest challenge that was ranked in that report. Now let's look at average inbox placement rate. Inbox placement rate is the number of emails that were placed into the recipient's inbox, like where they're supposed to be, as a proportion of all emails sent. So this is minus any that bounce, minus any that get put into the spam folder, or if you're a Gmail user, then the ones that go into the promotions tab or things like that. So that the average inbox placement rate is 83%. That's pretty low, and it declined from the previous year as well. So it's saying something about the state of deliverability. So as I mentioned, I was a Pardot and Salesforce consultant for a number of years, and there were 2 challenges that I found cropped up again and again. And of course, there are other common complaints around deliverability, but these were the two that I wanted to bring to you and highlight today. So marketing automation platforms will report on the delivered rate, but sometimes that's misleading. Emails could have been siphoned off into the spam folder, so we don't get visibility of that into our reporting. For all we know, the email was successfully delivered. Second of all, deliverability often gets confused with the other measurement that I've mentioned already, which is mailability. Both aim to explain why an email can or can't make it into the recipient's inbox, but they're very different in a number of ways. So to explain the differences between deliverability and mailability, I'm going to share my favorite analogy or like extended metaphor that I've used in the past, which is the Upscale Nightclub. So imagine an upscale nightclub, a fancy one. You probably know the one I'm talking about, the pretentious ones where there's a dress code, where you have unfriendly bouncers and expensive drinks. You get the picture. Sending an email is only part of the story. Like turning up to the nightclub is only part of the story of the night. Whether you get into the nightclub is another matter. So let's take a look at how the inbox nightclub works. So the recipient's inbox is the nightclub that everyone is trying to get into. There are a number of factors at play here. The club has a certain capacity, there's a dress code, and most importantly, the security to protect the venue because there's been some dodgy dealings going on. Your email is a nightclub goer, just one of the hopefuls lining up to get inside of the nightclub. Inboxes have filters that try to stop unsolicited emails from entering the recipient's inbox. So emails that you didn't ask for and don't want. Filters then can be imagined as bouncers. The security are trying to ensure that only the right people enter the club. So now let's pause there and turn our attention to mailability. Mailability is the status you have with a recipient, with a prospect. So a Pardot prospect, imagine you know if they're mailable or not. So are you allowed to send them emails? It can be summarized as another word, consent. And yes, like I was saying, in Pardot, you can see the percentage mailable in any lists that you create. So that's what we're referring to here. So mailability is like getting your name on the guest list for the club. There are two ways you can achieve mailability, or in other words, get onto the guest list. You as a brand can be invited to the guest list. In email marketing terms, this would be if a prospect subscribes to your mailing list. That's effectively giving you consent to come to the club, and so they add your brand to the guest list, their virtual guest list. That's obviously good inbound marketing. That's what you want. Or you can be asked to be added to the list. So that's any way you're directly asking for the recipient's consent to come to the club. Popular examples here are website pop-up forms, sales reps asking on the phone or in person, permission pass campaigns, which involve sending recipient a question to saying, do you reconfirm your consent for us to send you emails, yes or no? And once they click, that affirms that they're happy to be emailed by you. Right, so mailability, like a guest list. Deliverability is more like, can you enter the club? So the 5 factors that I want to discuss, it's almost like they're predetermined before you send the email. Sorry. Deliverability is whether you'll be able to get into the nightclub at a particular date or time. So being on the guest list does not guarantee you'll be able to enter the club. So the factors that the factors that determine deliverability are not necessarily consistent, just like things that can stand between you and getting into the nightclub on a particular night. So, right, these are the 5 factors that impact your entry on a given night. First of all, providing your ID. So this guest list is strict, and the club's policy is that you must provide photo ID before you can enter. This avoids other people trying to enter using your name that's on the guest list. Usually it's just someone trying to get into the club who shouldn't be there. Worst case scenario, they're going to cause some trouble, maybe steal some money from the bar, and people will believe it's you. This is why setting up email authentication is so important. Now, if you've set up Pardot or you've admined Pardot for a while, you would have heard of SPF and DKIM. So these acronyms, we can just summarize them as email authentication, and they work just like you would showing your ID to enter a club. It proves you are who you say you are. When sending an email, having that email authentication is almost like a handshake with the recipient's email clients. They know it is actually you that's trying to send the email into the inbox. It avoids something called email spoofing, which is where malicious senders will try to send emails with a forged sender address. So just like they would be using your ID to commit crime inside of the club. Even if your name is on the guest list, if you have consent, you may not be allowed in unless you show your photo ID, so unless you have that email authentication. Right, so then we've got the dress code. Upscale nightclubs use dress codes to create a desirable atmosphere inside of the club. So trashy and sloppy outfits are not welcome. Think of the words you're using in your email. Are those words spammy? This is the same as showing up to a nice nightclub in dirty running trainers or sneakers, as you guys call them. Bouncers are checking you are dressed appropriately. If they don't like what they see, you'll be turned away. This is exactly the same as what spam filters do for like monitoring emails incoming into the recipient's inbox. They're scanning each email for keywords or phrases that have spammy, that sound spammy, and that sets off their alarm bells. Not literal alarm bells. Third is the venue capacity. The nightclub may be full one night. Often that's not your fault. It's just been a popular night or the club is temporarily closed. This temporary unmailable status is known as a soft bounce in email marketing. Soft bounces are usually caused by server downtime, or the recipient's inbox is at full capacity, or maybe it just hasn't been set up properly. What is initially a soft bounce may ultimately end up as a hard bounce. In Pardot, for example, 5 soft bounces consecutively will automatically turn into a hard bounce, and that makes the recipient record marked unmailable. The fourth factor is that the club shut down. You just didn't hear about it until you showed up there. So deactivated email inboxes seem more frequent in B2B emails, email addresses, definitely from what I've seen in my experience, and I'm sure others would agree, because employees of companies come and go and they can't take their email address with them. So, well, obviously they can't take their email address with them, so that becomes invalid. And finally, you spelt the address wrong. Did you spell the street address wrong for the club? That's maybe why you can't find the right street to visit to get to the club. So you'll just keep circling around before you consider this nightclub a no-go. This is what happens in email marketing as well. If you misspell an email address, your email won't get delivered. So far I have shown you how deliverability is not only determined by the recipient's mailability that you see on their record in Pardot or Salesforce. It's the factors also that change day to day. However, the two do work in a feedback loop. As I mentioned with bounces, hard bounces and soft bounces do result in the prospect becoming unmailable. You will know where you stand with that prospect, as in they won't receive your emails again. So what's the point of all of this? Why am I drumming these differences in these two concepts into you? There are some points to get you thinking about your own email marketing, your tactics, and also your operations. So first of all, understanding deliverability and mailability is so important to understand the extent of your mailable database. Understanding that means you can estimate the reach your campaigns will have before you even send the email. So if you have a list of 100 prospects, but it turns out only 60 of them are mailable, you may decide to allocate less time and budget to that particular campaign, or you would change your target audience or try to build the list up first before you send the campaign, because otherwise you're only getting, say, 60% of what you may have initially thought you would have to start with. Smart market, kind of related to the point before, smart marketers work backwards from the number of conversions that they want to achieve. So their thinking may go, okay, so for X number of prospects to convert, I need this many people to click in the email. Based on my typical open rates, I need to send the email to this many people. So this helps you be realistic about your conversion goals. You need to set yourself up for success before pressing send by having enough prospects in your list to start with. All right, moving on to data management and archiving. Knowing which data is totally defunct, so that is hard bounced, they're marked do not email in Pardot, and which data could be potentially reactivated. So opted out prospects opting back in. Knowing the differences between those two groups of people, those two fields in Pardot, means you're not archiving data that could potentially be useful in the future. Of course, it's nice to spring clean your data, your dead data from lists as well, if you know that it's invalid email addresses. But then we get stale data. I'll say it again, just because a prospect is unmailable does not guarantee deliverability. It's a dangerous assumption for old data. You may have some prospects that haven't been emailed in a while. As data degrades with time, the chance of invalid emails increases. And if you send to a list that you haven't sent to in a while, it could cause, although they look mailable, it could cause you a lot of bounce backs. And just always remember that a bounce rate on a list email over 10%. So anything under 90% deliverability in Pardot will put your account at risk. And if you keep repeating high bounce ends or severely breach that, so really go under 90% deliverability, Pardot probably will suspend your account. It's happened to my clients before, and it's just not a nice process to go through. So those are 4 reasons why you should really start to care about the differences between deliverability and mailability and really wrap your head around how your prospect database looks. So before I open it up to the Q&A, I just wanted to say thank you for listening to me talk about nightclubs for the last 20 or so minutes. Based on how things at the moment with mass gatherings being suspended, this seems like quite a nostalgic topic to be talking about. But I hope you learned something new, or I hope that this analogy that I've got helped you get things clearer in your mind as well. So I'm just going to hop to the Q&A now. Are there any tools used to increase the deliverability of your emails? Yes, I think the first thing to do is obviously get a third-party service that can scan your prospect database. So scan your email addresses to identify invalid email addresses. As I said, in B2B marketing, these happen. These are more frequent occurrences than, say, in B2C, where people hold on to their email addresses longer. Ones that I can recommend are Bright Verify, which is now owned by Validity, and Never Bounce is also a good one. I believe one of those two actually now has a Pardot connector where you can import lists of prospects directly from Pardot into one of those tools. But otherwise, you would just export the list of email addresses and re-import it into the third-party tool. And on that point as well, you can actually analyze your list for free, so it will give you a rough estimate. If you actually want to pinpoint which email addresses are invalid and need cleaning, that's a paid service based on credits. Also, there's another great product out there, third-party product to help with deliverability. Not sure if they've been rebranded, but they're called 250 OK, and that gives you advanced deliverability analytics. You mentioned that list emails with a high bounce rate are flagged. Are emails sent and automations flagged also? No, I don't believe they are. I believe it's only list emails. I'm not sure about Engagement Studio emails. I just haven't heard of it happening. But I suppose automations are usually could usually be sent one by one. So I'm not too sure on that question though, but interesting to find out. I will try to find out. Okay. With Gmail specifically, do you have a strategy around which filter you land in? Do I have a strategy around which filter I land in? There are products out there, I believe, that can actually tell you that. Can't remember the names off the top of my head, but there are some really cutting edge stuff out there that can determine that. So if you are suspecting that you fall into the promotions tab, then you can maybe check some of those out. Obviously with B2B email addresses, we're quite lucky because Gmail doesn't, if it's a G Suite account, so not at gmail.com, then these business addresses don't have the promotions tab or the promotions and social tab, but spam would be then the one that you've got to watch out for. Oh, thank you. Got some fans for the nightclubs. New to Pardot and the admin, struggling to get our deliverability rate above 85%. Would you list? Yes, yeah, definitely get your prospect database cleaned. And then it's also just a case of rebuilding up your IP reputation. And there are tools out there, like I think one's called MX Toolbox, which even Pardot support would recommend to you. You stick in your email sending domain, and it will give you a rating and potentially flag some of the email authentication things that you may need to fix as well. such as, yeah, if you've got SPF records missing, or another one called DMARC. So that's a really good tool that I'd recommend. I think we're at time now, actually. As much as I could go on and on about this topic, as you can probably guess, I think I have to stop here, but I will take your questions away and answer them. Hopefully you can access that afterwards. But final takeaway from me, if you liked this analogy and this idea, this was actually based on a post from my blog called The Drip. There's tons of stuff on Pardot there, also cover Marketing Cloud and just general Salesforce marketing best practices. So things to Salesforce campaigns. Like I said, it's my collection of experiences that I had as a Pardot consultant. So yeah, take a look at that, and would love to connect with you also on LinkedIn and Twitter. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening, and take care and have a great holiday season and New Year. All the best 2021. Bye.